Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Be Ready Learning Conference. I'm Antoinette Toss, Oxfam Filipinas Ambassador for Resilience, your host for this afternoon. The Philippines is one of the most exposed countries when it comes to tropical cyclones, with 5 out of 20 expected to heavily devastate communities. As a result, disaster humanitarian assistance has become crucial for many vulnerable and marginalized Filipinos, especially those who live in areas with high geographic risk. Typhoon survivors mostly receive in-kind assistance in the form of food, water, and hygiene kits, which are usually distributed post-disaster. But based on its many years of experience in humanitarian assistance, Oxfam Filipinas realized that there is a better approach to better protect vulnerable households from disaster, a pre-disaster cash transfer program. Now, the program features 2 innovations by combining digital weather forecasting and risk modeling technologies as part of local communities' early warning system and trigger mechanisms for early response with digital finance technologies for the local community members. Now, through this insight, Oxfam developed a new humanitarian nexus model for disaster risk reduction, the Be Ready program. Now, to test the model, Oxfam partnered with global Parametrics, Smart Padala, and PayMaya, the municipal local government of Salcedo in eastern Samar, the Philippine Disaster Risk Reduction Network, PDRRN, and Plan International Philippines. After 2 years of implementation and testing, the Be Ready program has been proven as an effective disaster risk reduction model for local government units in saving lives and building local community resilience. Today, the Be Ready Project Consortium will share the results and lessons learned from their initial implementation in Salcedo, Eastern Samar. Using these learnings, the Be Ready Consortium aims to translate these learnings into meaningful action. During today's conference, the consortium hopes to form a caucus for meaningful reforms in existing government policies to facilitate a more robust preemptive approach to disaster risk management. To formally open our event, please welcome Ms. Ana Maria Locsin, Country Director, Philippines.
Thank you, Tony. Good afternoon to everyone. In our language, we say magandang hapon sa inyong lahat.
Magandang hapon po.
Before I get into the meat of the opening, the learning conference, please allow me to acknowledge the presence of the good mayor, Attorney Melchor Mergal, the Honorable Mayor of Salcedo. At the same time, he also holds that important position of MDRRMO in Melgar. And then we also have the consortium, led, of course, by Oxfam sa Pilipinas and represented by its country director, Maria Rosario Felisco. And then we have Mr. Toby Berman of the Global Parametrics, and from Plan International, we have several representatives here. We also have our key partners, the Philippines Disaster Risk Reduction Network, or PDRRN, and then we have PayMaya, we have Smart Padala, and of course, the municipal local government of Salcedo in Eastern Samar, where the project has been implemented, as Tony has mentioned, for more than 2 years. Let me also thank the rest of those who are with us. I understand we have several colleagues. We have Banda from our very own APAC regional hub. And then we have from our national offices of Plan International from UK and the Netherlands. We also have, if I may, Miss Petra Hamers, I hope I'm pronouncing your family name properly, of Oxfam Novib. And just give me a little time to go over all those others who I need to acknowledge. Mr. Esteban Masagka of PDRRN, and Kenneth Palacios of PayMaya. And lastly, but more importantly, is our frontline worker, Ida Loyola of Plan International in Eastern Samar. The project would not have been made possible by our donors if not for our donors and supporters. And if I may just give a special thank you to the Dutch Relief Alliance, who we also refer to as DRA, and of course the Foreign and Commonwealth and Development Office of the UK government, which is popularly called FCDO. This was DFID in the past. Today, we formally open the learning conference on the project, Building Resilient, Adaptive, and Disaster-Ready Communities, popularly referred to as Be Ready. The project strives for early warning systems to improve disaster preparedness of local humanitarian actors and vulnerable households that are more resilient through access to cash grants and payouts of insurance for preparedness. It is a model testing on pre-disaster cash transfer, which is a forecast-based financing that is an anticipatory action where vulnerable households in disaster-prone locations would benefit in multiple ways. And there are several ways. I will not go into the details of this because I understand that this would be discussed more in more, how do you call this? In a large extent in the learning discussion. Through the learning conference, the consortium will share results and lessons learned from this project that are being offered as key takeaways. You see, as we continue to learn from this project, the Be Ready 2 has already started last month with the same consortium and funded by the DRA. We at Plan International Philippines, together with the consortium, we value this project as it aligns very clearly to our goal to have a just world that advances children's rights and equality for girls and young women. Because in disasters, we all know that children, especially girls and young women, are the most heavily affected. So, without much ado, I would like to formally open the conference. And thank you once again to everyone who is here. I understand from the chat box, I think we have now 86 participants and counting. So thank you very much. Over to you, Tony.
Maraming salamat po, Ma'am Annie, for that inspiring and empowering message. Thank you so much for all that you do. And before we begin the learning presentations of the Be Ready Consortium representatives, we'll first have our Zoomie or Zoom picture taking. So if you are on Zoom, please turn on your video if that's okay so that we can document this day. And of course, please turn on your Oxfam Be Ready virtual background if you have it. I believe we shared the link to that earlier as well so that we can be one with this. Now, given the number of attendees for this learning conference, we'll take a few photos and several frames. So we'll ask you to just keep smiling at the web camera when we begin, and they will let us know when they've got all the frames. All right, everyone, we can all start smiling and say, be ready. 1, 2, 3. Be ready.
Okay, be ready. One last frame. Done.
All right. Now, for those of you that would like to turn off your video cameras, you may, but if you'd like to keep them on, that's actually wonderful as well. And we're about to begin our presentations. Now, the Be Ready project involves 6 important operational areas, from risk forecasting technologies to pre-disaster cash transfers. A representative from each of the assigned consortium members will present the important learnings, results, and experiences related to their respective areas within the next hour and a half. Now, to have a better appreciation and understanding of the upcoming presentations, let's first watch the post-event video of the previous Be Ready project event, Building Elements of Effective and Sustainable Disaster Risk Financing Strategy.
what our question was, for the disaster-prone communities, what would be the products and services that that could be useful for them? When we asked the question, it was for the vulnerable communities in general. The findings from the pilot indicated that investments in the preparatory activities related to the disaster preparedness could actually result in higher savings or lesser spendings on relief efforts. The communities can prepare themselves with the preparatory activities, meaning early harvest of crops, or strengthening their houses, buying medicines, food supplies, or keeping their livestock in a safe location, so that the impact of the calamity would be much less in their livelihoods, and then they can move back to their income generating activities much sooner.
As we end the first phase of the Be Ready pilot implementation this month, we have learned some valuable lessons. The first is that local triggers must be developed with the strong participation of vulnerable community members and CSOs. They must be part of deciding impact thresholds. This helps local government better understand the impacts of vulnerabilities during disasters. Secondly, Parametrics provide reliable local impact data that can be understood and acted upon locally and can be further improved over time. Third, automatic payments work well with pre-sensitization of vulnerable communities. Fourth, transparent information supports more effective preemptive response. And lastly, there's actually great interest among private sector financial providers in the Philippines in preemptive business products, and business models can be developed with further study. So we hope that with these learnings, we can further inspire you to go and apply these lessons into actual work.
We see this huge variety of stakeholders who all have their specific role and responsibility in making this work. And this starts with the government. We see the service providers, and those come from microfinance to the reinsurers and everything in between, because they all have different roles or can assume different roles. It's the civil society organizations, be it the members of the Be Ready Consortium, but also all the other civil society organizations who are probing, trying, and venturing out in similar initiatives. It's the community organizations as such, because without the organizations at the community level, none of this will actually work. And last but not least, it's also the international donor community. We all need those stakeholders together in order to take this further.
Our continued partnerships will really play a key role in addressing these significant gaps and in supporting the sustained growth and economic development of our country, with the ultimate goal of enhancing and strengthening our collective resilience.
In a year, 2 years, 5 years, keep sharing what we have learned, keep probing further, showing how new products have worked, and that in this way we can come to a world where preemptive services and support to the vulnerable becomes more and more the reality instead of after the disaster.
Now that we've seen how the building elements of a sustainable disaster risk financing strategy launch went last February and have a better idea of what the Be Ready project is, it's time to learn more about the program from each member of the project consortium. They will share their learnings and experiences throughout the project's initial implementation. Now, at the end of each presentation, everybody who is here via Zoom will have the chance to win a cash prize. Yes, you heard that right. We'll be posting questions on the screen about what the speakers were just talking about and presenting, and you may respond to them by typing your answers in the Zoom chat box. The first one to give the correct answer will receive 300 pesos cash. And this is from the Be Ready Project Consortium. Now, keep in mind that we want to give everybody a chance to win. So that's why you can only win a cash prize once, para naman fair and equal po tayo, di ba? And so please pay really close attention to the presentations so that you can maximize your chances of winning a cash prize. And also for those of you that might have questions, please do type them up. Indicate your name, where you're from, who you represent, who you want to ask the question to, who it's directed to, and your question, because we also have a live Q&A session later on. So for the speakers that are here with us, hopefully they'll be able to answer any questions that you may have. Now, here we go. Our series of presentations today will start with a sharing on the lessons learned by the Be Ready Project's local government unit partner, the municipality of Salcedo in eastern Samar. Ladies and gentlemen, let's all welcome the honorary mayor of Salcedo, Attorney Melchor Melgar.
Good day, everyone. I believe early anticipatory actions in DRR management means early warning, as well as early and better preparations that would ultimately result to resilience. If I am to describe what we are before Hayan, I would say we have weak DRR governance. We really are vulnerable. Maybe because we are used to not so strong typhoons that DRR is not given attention. But when Hayan came, it changes everything. Our reality before Hayan is that our disaster risk reduction and management was not institutionalized. No emergency response team, no contingency plan, among others. Practically, we do not have everything. That is why when Typhoon Haiyan came, our response was very slow. Humanitarian responders were overwhelmed. There was no proper coordination. Among other common problems when typhoon usually strikes in our communities or municipalities. That is why after Haiyan, our municipal disaster risk reduction plan was updated. Early warning systems for typhoon were put up to indicate risk levels. Regular drills are held to simulate municipal and village level crisis situations. Through an executive order, the municipality institutionalized an emergency disaster response team. The emergency disaster response team is equipped with rescue vehicles, emergency health kits, and spine boards, among others. We enacted policies for the creation of Municipal Disaster Risk Reduction Management Office, as well as the officer that is in charge. And lately, we have preemptive cash assistance through building resilience, adaptive, and disaster-ready communities project of the BERIDI Consortium. It is a digital platform regarding preemptive cash assistance. We do constant coordination with humanitarian actors in the municipality to maximize resources on disaster risk management. And on top of this, I conceptualized a leadership menu of anticipatory actions in DRR management. First is understanding current realities. The reality before, for example, is that we have to give assistance to affected population only after landfall, and strictly speaking, after the declaration of state of calamity. Now, as part of our advocacy is that we want to change that. It must be given 3 days before landfall. Second, no current realities. In time of disasters, time is of the essence. People cannot wait. That's why anticipatory actions are necessary. Third, we institutionalized local development councils. This is very important because DRR management involves multi-stakeholder engagement, like MDRRMC or the Municipal Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, and other local special bodies that is mandated by the Local Government Code of 1991 to the local government units. And fourth, make policies and plans. In the VERIDY project, for example, we have integrated in our early warning systems preemptive cash transfer and social protection mechanisms for its sustainability. And fifth, we build competencies as well as core competencies. The sixth, equip frontliners. The seventh is execute the plans. And the eighth is sustain, innovate, and scale out. And lastly, we share knowledge. I've been sharing our DRR good governance practices to other local government units and national government offices. It's all about leadership. And leadership may be a one word, but it tells a story. It tells everything. We are what we are today because of the decisions of our leaders yesterday. We are all leaders. Let us be accountable for the future. We cannot be wrong in our actions because it has implications for the future of our children and the world. Anticipating disasters that will happen is better than just waiting for disasters to happen. Therefore, anticipatory actions in DRR is very important. For all of us here, let us continue investing towards resilience. Together, we can do so much. From the people of Salcedo, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mayor Melchor Mergal, for sharing with us the value of anticipatory or proactive disaster risk management action for local government units around the country. We hope that LGUs all over the Philippines will be encouraged from Salcedo's experience during the Be Ready project's initial run. And now, mga kaibigan, it's time for Quiz Bee number 1. Are you ready? All right, to our audience members, we'll give you chances to win 300 pesos in cash. Get those fingers ready to answer the questions. Make sure you're looking at the screen clearly. We'll be flashing questions about Mayor Melgar's presentation on the screen. And if you are the first to type the correct answer on the Zoom chat box, you will be 300 pesos wealthier. All right, now let's see the question for Quiz Bee number 1. Here we go. Give one of the changes the municipality of Salcedo made to its DRR after Yolanda or Haiyan to significantly improve how it manages disaster risks. All right. So there are a few acceptable answers. We shall wait from our team to hear from our team who the chosen answer will be, but please do take your time. Actually, do not take your time. That is wrong. Do not take your time, but do not feel pressured because I know that you have the answers inside of you and there are a number of different answers. Hindi lang po isa. So please do type them up. Whatever hits you the most, whatever your favorite one was, possibly. All right. Thank you so much. We've got some answers coming in. Someone said cash transfer using digital platform, climate finance, increased planning and funding, early warning system, institutionalization of DRRM. Napakaraming pumapasok na sagot. Mag-aantay po tayo ng cue sa ating team to see who the winner is. All right. They have told us who the winner is, ladies and gentlemen. The winner is Ana Liza Solis. I believe her answer is cash transfer using digital platform. But for everyone else, we would like to show you all the available and acceptable answers for today as well. And this was pertaining to Mayor Melchor Melgar's presentation. And thank you. Oh my gosh, clearly everybody is really into this. And that's why we are here today to be ready and, of course, to scale this up and spread the message. Thank you very much. And don't forget, we have more Quiz Bee questions coming up in just a bit. Now, that's all the time we have for our first presentation. Once again, thank you so much, Mayor Melchor Melgar. Now, here we go. Our next speaker is the Executive Director of the Philippine Disaster Risk Reduction Network, and he will discuss the important role of local humanitarian actors in terms of anticipatory action in disaster risk management. Ladies and gentlemen, mga kaibigan, please welcome Mr. Esteban Masagka.
Hello, good afternoon, good morning to the other country. Basically, PDRN took the lead in the social preparation and field operations, guided clearly with the current local DRRM capacity or system and local policies of Salcedo. The aim is to add value to the current preparedness and response capacity of the municipal LGU of Salcedo. Looking at this diagram, PDRN directly works with at least three major partners, especially the municipal LGU, the communities through the barangay local government units and Oxfam. But we also work indirectly with Plan International, Smart Padala in implementing the project in the field. So looking at this diagram, you will see how PDRN undertook different activities in the building of the platform. So basically, there are three at least major bases of the modeling or building the model. One is the laying of the foundation. In the foundation, PDRN basically undertake promotional activities, a series of dialogues, orientation, and training, aiming for people to understand and appreciate the concept. And later on, the acceptance, and it resulted to their active participation. So we conducted a series of community-based education. One of them is finance literacy, safe programming, and of course, cash and voucher assistance that will also guide in the implementation of the cash transfer program. In addition, we conducted also the risk assessment as part of the updating of the risk information of the 9 barangays of Salcedo. Later on, of course, the building of the infrastructure. Basically, we facilitated the digital registration and account creation, and later on, distribution of the iAfford card. We also conducted mapping of MIMOs, or the money in, money out, or the local merchants in the area. We contributed also in the calibration of the tropical cyclone forecasting index by way of data gathering, especially on the historical impact of the various cyclones in the past, then integrated that in the index. We also provided technical support in terms of framing all the protocols into one guidelines in partnership, of course, with the MDRRMC of Salcedo. And later on, we integrated that into the contingency plan of the MDRRMC, and of course, in the 9 barangays of Salcedo. The operationalization of the infrastructure basically went into different trials, then assessment and enhancement, then later on the finalization. During the first community drill, where we simulated the protocols, we did that in January. Then later on, we put that into a formal guideline, conducted a series of meetings with the MDRC members. Then later on, the MLGU of Salcedo formally adopted that guideline. In the past 2 typhoons, Auring and Ursula, we did the actual monitoring and activation of the platform, and we had twice disbursement of cash. And during the end or later part of the project, we also conducted the users education session or the users readiness education session. So in brief, PDRN did the facilitation, user support, if ever problems on their account emerge. We did technical support by way of advice and providing information in the formulation or framing of the whole guidelines. Then we manage also the feedback coming from the ground. So that's basically how PDRN contributed in the building of the platform. Well, in terms of challenges, of course, it's obvious that the lockdown because of the pandemic actually barred us into going into face-to-face activities on the ground. No? But on the lessons, I want just to highlight that the high interest of strong participation of the community members, the barangay officials and the municipal officials actually considered as key driving force in the implementation of the project, especially, of course, the commitment coming from the municipal mayor of Salcedo. And also one lesson, financial literacy actually was very instrumental in the knowledge transfer, specifically on the digital financial services to the community. So I think that's all. Over to you, Tony.
Maraming salamat po muli, Mr. Masagka, of course, from the People's Disaster Risk Reduction Network, or PDRRN. Maraming salamat po. And thank you so much again for showing us how important local humanitarian actors are when it comes to taking proactive action as part of a solid disaster risk management strategy. Maraming salamat po muli, Sir Esteban. And of course, here's another chance to win one of the 300 pesos cash prizes we're giving away. Simply answer this question about Sir Esteban's presentation. Be the first to type the correct answer and be the winner. Here we go. Let's see the next question for Quiz B number 2. All right, give a name of one of the humanitarian actors involved in the Be Ready project. We have a few acceptable answers once again. So please do keep going. We're seeing answers right now. May nakalagay, MLGU, LGU, PDRRN, PDRRN, Oxfam, Plan International, PDRRN. Wow, napakaraming mga sagot. Titignan natin kung ano po at sino ang nanalo at napili pong winner. Quiz B number 2 winner is Hillary Marie Ratilla. At ayan po, titignan ko ulit ang sagot niya. Nakalagay po PDRN. Maraming salamat, Hillary Marie Ratilla. You are the winner dahil ikaw ang unang-unang sumagot. And here are the acceptable answers, of course. Oxfam Pilipinas, Plan International Philippines, and PDRRN. At syempre po, we have to be the first one to type the answer. But don't worry, marami pa po kayong chances coming right up. That's all the time we have for our second presentation. Once again po, maraming salamat po, Sir Esteban of the People's Disaster Risk Reduction Network, or PDRRN, for enlightening us on the important role of local humanitarian actors in taking anticipatory disaster risk management actions. Now, continuing on the lessons and experiences from the initial implementation of the Be Ready project, one of the often overlooked but very important aspects of disaster risk management is social and gender protection. Now, in the next presentation, we'll get to know about strengthening social and gender protection in disaster risk reduction. Please help me welcome Plan International Philippines Provincial Supervisor for the Eastern Samar Program Area, Ms. Aida Loyola.
Thank you, Tony. Good afternoon, everyone. Climate change is real. As disaster increase, threats to gender, safety, and protection, especially of the vulnerable sector, including children, especially girls, persons with disability and elderly also increases. Strengthening safeguarding, protection, and gender during preparedness, response, and rehabilitation phases are significant aspects of disaster risk reduction that need to be prioritized by the relevant government offices, humanitarian organizations, the RRMCs, and most importantly, each household or family. Safeguarding, protection, and gender should be mainstreamed in every level, but most relevant at the grassroots level. Plan, together with the consortium members, always strive for a community where children, especially girls, women, persons with disabilities, and elderlies can participate and benefit from various undertakings. Thus, safeguarding, protection, and gender are integral part of the BERID model and project. Since the BERID model focuses on anticipatory action or disaster preparedness, Plan, together with the consortium, strongly advocated to enhance the capacity of every individual, their families or households and communities as a whole on disaster preparedness so they can better protect themselves from the impact of an impending disasters, whether physically or socially. Plan International took the leadership of the consortium on the following activities: formation and capacity building of the community protection monitors. The protection monitors attended series of meetings, trainings on various safeguarding, protection, and gender, and they helped in the rollout in their respective communities. The protection monitors became catalysts and communities' constant reminders to make sure that the vulnerable community members are given appropriate treatment and support while preparing for any disasters and during evacuations if it's necessary for them to leave their homes. The protection monitors also ensure that children, persons with disabilities, and senior citizens are accounted for before, during, and after disasters. Establishment of community reporting and referral mechanism or referral pathway. Issues and concerns on safeguarding, protection, and gender should all be reported fast, conveniently, and confidentially. Each of the projects covered barangays were oriented on the referral pathway, and information posted in accessible areas in the barangay and provided with the smartphones so individuals can report to the hotline numbers and be assisted by trained and mandated offices like the Municipal Social Welfare and Development Office and the Women and Children Protection Desk of the Philippine National Police with the barangay leaders and volunteers. Awareness on gender and protection was amplified through public service announcements aired through the local radio station and the barangay's local public announcement system, the Bandilyo system. Bandilyo is an old approach of using a sound system that relies on the big trompa or horn speaker connected to an amplifier and powered by a small generator that goes to various sitios or puruks to share important information. There are also information and announcements in the billboards positioned strategically in the communities. The project conducted gender risk assessments. In that study, it is learned that men and boys are those usually trained on disaster preparedness, while mothers and young women are not. Thus, the BERID project also oriented and trained them on what to do during impending disasters to help secure their families as well. Further, as also reflected in that same study, the local transport groups were gathered, organized, and trained to assist the vulnerable sector and those who don't have any means of transportation to evacuate or get pre- and post-disaster assistance. This is just the beginning. There are still much that has to be done in making sure that the vulnerable sector are really included and given the utmost support as necessary. Plan and the BERID consortium members enjoin everyone here to make safeguarding, protection, and gender be integral parts of your anticipatory action project designs, just like in your emergency responses after disaster. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ida, for enlightening us on the social and gender protection aspects of effective disaster risk management. Maraming salamat po. And to our audience members who still have yet to win a 300 pesos cash prize, don't worry, here's your chance. Answer this question about Ma'am Ida's presentation. Be the first to type the correct answer in the Zoom chat box and be one of today's winners. Ayan na. What is the aspect of disaster risk reduction, DRR, that ensures adequate protection and care for women? What is the aspect of disaster risk reduction, DRR, that ensures adequate protection of care for women? Children and women are told what should be done in times of disasters: gender equality, gender sensitivity, gender equality. So we're waiting for confirmation from our team. Please do keep sending in those answers. And once again, the correct one, the first correct one, will be chosen as the winner. And inclusion and gender equality, safeguarding women and children, gender and social protection, gender and protection, gender sensitive. All right. Let's ask our team, sino po ang napiling winner? Ayan, parang may microphone ako, wala po. Or may earpiece, wala po. All right, team. Team be ready. Who is our winner? I would say, paano po ba? Based dito sa ating, ayan, maybe we can show. Has the team chosen a winner already? Mukhang kailangan pa yatang ayan, the answer is gender protection. Sige, tignan na lang po natin sino ang unang nagbigay ng gender protection answer. It seems that it is VC Apostol of Good Neighbors. Maraming salamat. And thank you so much. Actually, napakadami ninyong tama, pero we needed to make sure na ma-confirm po ang ating sagot. And I think Ma'am Ida is also pleased with that answer. Now, that's all the time we have for our third presentation. Once again, maraming salamat po, Ma'am Ida Loyola, for your enlightening presentation on how to strengthen the social and gender protection aspects of disaster risk reduction. And thank you to all who typed up those answers for the quiz bee. And congratulations to the winners. Ang daming tama at maraming salamat for really listening and giving that empowerment and inspiration. Now, at this point, we will have a 5-minute break before proceeding with presentations 4 through 6. So please do take the opportunity to stretch, walk around, relax, breathe, rehydrate, and we'll see you in just 5 minutes.
Open sa taas. Tingnan mo, hindi siya nakapadlock. Okay.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Now, to continue our discussions for this afternoon, one of the most important, if not the most critical aspect of building resilient communities in the midst of natural calamities is access to cash during emergencies. Our next presenter will highlight the important role digital finance and local markets play in helping communities build resiliency. Please remember to listen to the presentation very well because we have another quiz bee after this. Friends, please welcome PayMaya's Vice President and Director of Wallet Partnerships, Mr. Kenneth Palacios.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone, and good morning to our guests from the other countries. I just wanted to check if you are able to see my screen. Good. All right. So first and foremost, PayMaya is very much privileged and honored to be working with such a creative and innovative group of organizations to be able to bring in Be Ready. And most importantly, we're very much honored to be working with the LGU-Salcedo, given their willingness and ability to really explore options of how to make it work. Sabi nga nila, diba? It's from moving from post-disaster to pre-disaster. And as a financial services provider in the program, PayMaya really believes in the way that local communities should thrive and should evolve. And so in the presentation of Bong of PDRNN, one of the things that he talked about was the money in, money out centers. For us, that is simplified as our sari-sari store, no? Simply because the sari-sari store in any community is where business and money flows. So when people need to buy something, they go to the sari-sari store. And in the areas where we are, the sari-sari store also acts as your financial gateway to accepting funds. No? So hindi po nalalayo yun sa mga pang-kaaraw-araw nating pangangailangan. So everyone congregates to the sari-sari store. So what we are beginning to see right now is the sari-sari store, although their faces remain to be the same, di ba? So si ate pa rin yan, si kapitbahay, si kuya, si nanay, si tatang. Ang daming nagbabago sa kanilang mga pamumuhay, lalo-lalo na po sa kanilang patutungo sa kanilang mga customers. Now, in the Be Ready program, one of the things that we have done is to provide them access to technology that allowed them to disburse the funds that were being given to the Be Ready participants using the iAfford card. Now, one of the things that is very important in this transformation program is the fact that meron tayong education, merong financial literacy, and more importantly, there is the willingness, diba? And for our sari-sari stores, the reason why it is very important to them being at the center of the community is because now, beyond the products that they sell, yung pangkaraniwang na pagkain, mga inumin, mga household items that you use for cleaning, dito na pumapasok ngayon yung access to other digital technologies. No? So one of the things that we've learned from the experience, and as we evolve the experience, the smart padala outlets that we have, the MIMOs that we have transformed, has to grow from the services that they offer. From just offering remittance services and having access to robust and strong telecommunications network and data signals, importante rin po sa kanila ngayon na as they evolve to become a PayMaya center, they are not just offering the cash-based encashment or liquidation that is distributed to the IAFORD cards, but to create a more sustainable ecosystem in the community. We believe that providing these PayMaya centers an ability to transact with their suppliers, yung mga nagdi-deliver po sa kanila ng mga pagkain at saka kung ano-ano pang from the FMCG. If they're able to make payments to them via cashless means, then pwede po nating paikutin yung ating transactions. In the very same way, the sari-sari stores, as we allow them to accept payments, diba? Hindi lang po yung cash na pagbayad, pero in the future, as QRPH is rolled out, this is the Central Bank of the Philippines push towards a single QR for the rest of the Philippines, more and more people will have access to apps, not only just PayMaya, but andiyan din yung mga bangko, di ba? Andiyan po si BPI, si BDO, and all the other banks. So soon, using QRPH, kaya na nilang magbayad sa sari-sari stores natin. And ultimately, our plan also is to increase the capabilities of our centers, not just to encash money that is coming from PayMaya, but also to be able to encash money that is coming from any financial centers. So yan po yung mga natutunan namin, no, na as the sari-sari store becomes the center of all the financial and business transactions in the community, we have to add the services so that all of the people that congregate and use the sari-sari store may have access to many forms of digital as well as financial services. And ultimately, our goal is to also be able to provide them access to capital, mga loans po, and access to insurance. Kasi nakikita po natin that as we are very susceptible and vulnerable to natural disasters, giving and having access to insurance products prepares the individual even much more. No? So these are the things that we are beginning now to incorporate on the evolution of our PayMaya centers as a result of our learnings from the Be Ready project. And all of it is really driven by the fact that the participants, diba? Yung mga tao na nandoon sa ating mga participating areas, they are the ones who receive the IAFORD cards. They are the ones who are given the preemptive cash so that they can purchase or use the money that they need to aid them in their evacuation or in moving towards other locations. So this ability to interact now with more PayMaya centers or more locations of merchants who will be able to accept these types of payments will be very important. And as we move towards their financial inclusion, in fact, we are all helping to create the cashless programs that the Bangko Sentral is trying to build on by 2023. And in that time, yung roadmap po na tinitignan natin is 50% of all retail payment volumes in the Philippines should now move towards cashless. And from our current 30% Filipino adults having access to financial instruments, ang goal po by 2023 is to have 70% of all Filipino adults have access to a financial account. So IAFORD, Be Ready is a part of that program that helps bring about all of this change. And we are, again, very excited, honored to be part of this transformational program. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much once again, PayMaya's Vice President and Director of Wallet Partnerships, Mr. Kenneth Palacios. Maraming salamat. And thank you very much for helping us understand the importance of digital finance and local markets in terms of building resilient communities. And more importantly, thank you for clearly identifying their roles in this endeavor. Now, alam ko ready na kayo for Quiz Me question number 4. Get those fingers ready. Get ready to type really quick. And alam niyo nang mangyayari. Here's the question. What is considered to be the heart of many Philippine communities where business and money flow? Naku, ayun. Parang hindi pa po ako tapos mag-ask ng question. The answers are all flowing in. And it seems everybody has the same view about this question. All right, here we go. Quiz B number 4 winner is... let me double check. Ayan, MJ Mama. MJ Mama, sorry. Actually, winners po kayong lahat because everybody was correct. But of course, when we flashed the question, this was the first answer that came in. So maraming salamat. Congratulations, MJ Mama, once again. And Sir Kenneth, thank you again for enlightening us on the importance of the roles of digital finance and local markets. And thank you once again to everybody that typed so quickly. Thank you once again. Ayan, may nakita pa ako isang sagot. Tindahan. Yes, pwede din po yun. Now, here we go. Our second to the last speaker will share lessons learned by the project's technical partner. In his presentation, we'll learn about a crucial component of an effective and sustainable disaster risk financing strategy, such as the Be Ready Project's pre-disaster cash transfer program, disaster risk forecasting technology. Now, here to help us understand how it works in terms of helping local government units take timely and accurate anticipatory actions, let's all welcome Mr. Toby Berman from Global Parametrics.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for inviting me to this event. Today, I'm just going to talk very quickly on using forecasts for anticipatory financing. Why is it important to use forecasts and why is anticipatory financing important? Because what we've seen is that cash before or just at the point of an event occurring can often be 3 times more valuable than prior. You can get the money in fast, you can get it to the people who need it, and you don't have to wait a long period of time afterwards. So you can get it over this sort of initial hump in the financing period. The question then is, how do you reliably deploy the capital before an event? How do you know who to give it to, when to give it, and how much? So Global Parametrics, we build what we call parametric indices, and I'll go over a little bit more about that. And we use those indices to trigger objectively when we think something's going to happen. This is utilizing the latest science and technology and is designed, again, to be objective and not subjective. So we have a clear view of what's going to happen, and then we trigger. The initial pilot, as we've spoken about, was focused on Salcedo, East and Samar. But this program can go in many other places where the different events are or where different indices are built. Again, the cash is deployed, as we've seen, those impacted by the event. What GP do is model the path and intensity of a storm at a specific location, and that is the key to capture the vulnerability. We're talking about how the process works. GP platform brings together many different data sets from satellites, model data, a lot of these global data sets, which are ingested in our platform to actually what we create an index which sort of predicts the chance of an event happening. When that prediction is triggered, then in this case, Oxfam are provided information which enables them to release cash prior to an event or just before or just around the time, so this is all about speed of information. We use a parametric trigger again because it's transparent, predictable, and definitive. But what is a parametric trigger? What is a parametric index? So a parametric index is a numerical score which predicts or which takes a view of the severity of the event and the likelihood of it impacting in a certain area. This is converted into a numerical score that can be easily understood. For example, if we're taking a very basic level, a score of 1 could be a typical tropical cyclone which isn't going to cause any damage. A 5 could be a heavier and unusual one, and a 10 could be a super typhoon. And each one of those points, you can create an action. When we talk about forecasting or using forecast for anticipatory action, what we're talking about here is taking multiple what we call forecast tracks. So there are many different weather agencies who, when it looks like a tropical cyclone is going to happen, start forecasting or predicting the movement of that cyclone in time. And there are multiple of these agencies and multiple tracks. What Global Parametrics do is we take these multiple tracks and we rank them by historical skill. So we look back in time over the whole period that they've been operating in and see which ones are often either more accurate or more skillful. We call an ensemble. From that ensemble, we then start modeling what we call the wind speed. And the wind speed is not just the track or the speed where the cyclone is going to go, but also the wind going sort of laterally from the cyclone. So how that cyclone is affecting or impacting outside of just its track. And we model that on a sort of 6-hourly basis from the individual tracks that we're getting from the cyclones to get an idea of what's the chance of a very high or a particularly triggered wind speed occurring in a specific place. From that, by taking into account the wind field at a particular location, we can get an understanding or a prediction of what the likelihood of that wind speed is going to be in a certain area, in this case, Salcedo, Eastern Samar. And when that likelihood of wind speed reaches a certain point, then we trigger. So what we're looking at here is we're taking a lot of these tracks together, we're joining them together in one place, we're looking at them at the scale, and then we're sort of predicting or building a model of the wind speed to get an understanding of how it will affect a certain area. And that technology enables us to basically forecast, because a forecast trigger, which then enables us to create an anticipatory action. And that action, in the case of the Oxfam one, is a payment. So just to sort of reiterate how this works, we build this index by bringing together ensembles of many different forecasts to work out and evaluate the probability of damage from a certain wind speed in a certain area. We monitor this index on a 6-hourly basis once a tropical cyclone has been identified. And if the index exceeds a predefined value, that information is then sent to our partners, which triggers the financial payout. One of the key growth areas of this is that because this index that we're building is objective and is fully evaluated, it can be used for financial products as well. And the next stage is, rather than the trigger coming from a grant fund or just money from a bank account, is to link this to an insurance product. So you can create a forecast insurance product which protects individuals and communities. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your clear and concise presentation on how risk forecasting technology is used for taking effective anticipatory action when it comes to managing disaster risks. And to our audience, are you ready? Quiz B number 5. Naku, exciting. What a fun way to learn and empower each other. All right, here we go. Next question from Sir Toby's presentation. What do you call a numerical score that, number 1, measures the severity of typhoon and the likelihood of its impact to a specific area, and 2, can trigger specific kinds of action pertaining to such events like pre-disaster cash transfers? I'm seeing so many answers popping in even before finishing the question. I think we can agree that we already have a winner here. We will wait for a cue from the team. All right, the team says the winner officially is Sharon Andrea with her answer, parametric index. Thank you very much. And once again, thank you so much very much to Sir Toby for sharing the value of risk forecasting technology for anticipatory action. And thanks to everyone once again that participated. Ang daming tamang sagot. Maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat. And thank you so much for happily listening and empowering each other. All right, here we go. Speaking of the financial component of disaster risk reduction, what makes the Be Ready Project disaster risk reduction model unique is disaster risk financing, particularly pre-disaster cash transfers as a part of the anticipatory action. Now, for our final presentation, our speaker will help us clearly understand the significance or importance of pushing for anticipatory action and forecast-based financing so that local governments can more effectively reduce their disaster risks. Now, ladies and gentlemen, please help me give a warm welcome to Oxfam Pilipinas Senior Manager for Programs and Partnerships, Ms. Maria Teresa Abogado.
Thank you, Tony. Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning to the other part of the world. Being the last speaker, may I ask for your indulgence to bear for a few more minutes and allow us to share with you the vision for scaling up innovations and model of anticipatory action and pre-disaster cash transfer program initiated by Be Ready. Next slide, please. Okay. Today, as Be Ready is concluding its phase 1 of implementation, you have heard so many valuable lessons, which ranges from validating relevance of Be Ready and its contribution to advancing disaster risk reduction measures. These are actually captured into 4 key parts. One is developing the preemptive cash transfer program and anticipatory protocol. The second is improving efficiency and effectiveness on the use of the state-of-the-art technology and forecast modeling and digital cash transfer, and focusing on innovating disaster risk financing products and services. Third is strengthening safeguarding and protection measures of the most vulnerable groups before and during a crisis. And lastly, how we're able to enable an environment for policy review to benefit promotion, learnings, and sustainability, and including ways forward. But let us not forget that the humanitarian system are actually continuously challenged to date by increasing number of disasters induced by changing climate, such as typhoon, floods, and droughts, at a period where when global humanitarian system resources is actually stretched to its limits. Funding gap remains to be one of the core sustainability issues for the current humanitarian system to operate. Next slide, please. But let us tell you a story. In February 2021, we saw a shift in locals' action in disaster preparedness. When Typhoon Auring entered Philippines, Salcedo residents and the local government showed early action measures to save lives and their properties. Local government started to evacuate people early. Pre-disaster cash was released to its residents, allowing them to stockpile food, medicines, or their basic needs, and even secure their livelihood assets. Next slide, please. This scenario, as demonstrated by the Salcedo municipality in Eastern Samar, was the vision of Be Ready. Be Ready, or the Building Resilient, Adaptive, and Disaster-Ready Communities, Phase 1, which began in 2019, aims to innovate humanitarian response by better protecting vulnerable communities through integrating 2 innovations. The first one is on the use of digital forecast technology to enhance early warning system, and the second, to enable a pre-disaster cash transfer program through using digital financial technology to promote social protection and anticipatory action. By having a proof of concept how these 2 innovations work, Be Ready aims to support humanitarian actors and systems, increase their capacity to reduce disaster risk, save costs by investing in disaster risk reduction measures, and save lives and assets through enhancing anticipatory capacity of the most vulnerable people in communities. Next slide, please. All of these objectives and goals of Be Ready, as demonstrated by Salcedo, was able to develop a system, process, and protocol on preemptive cash transfer and anticipatory action planning. These are documented by the project according to key elements to develop the anticipatory action capacity to operate a pre-disaster cash transfer protocol. In this innovation process, as you can see in your screen, the project journeyed with different stakeholders, which spoke already a while ago, from the ranges of local government, private sector, represented by local merchants, financial technology provider, risk model developer, financial sector, and even humanitarian actors from the civil society, international NGO, and perform the following milestones or events over the period of more than 2 years. Let me begin looking back at 2019. 2019 is the preparation of the project to build the parametric model carried through the following key initiatives or activities. The first one is conducting the participatory hazard risk assessment. This actually covers community consultation on mapping and analysis of their own capacities, vulnerabilities, exposure to hazards, especially on typhoon, as this will serve as input to number 2. Number 2 is the parametric risk model development, which comprise of data gathered from activity number 1 as an input indicator to social vulnerability, also including 60 years of historical extreme weather data coming from PAG-ASA, and third, harvesting weather forecast bulletins, which includes PAG-ASA, and gathered from multiple weather agencies, at least 20 of them as we know right now, to provide accurate and reliable forecast information for the project. Alongside, while these two are actually happening, a pre-crisis assessment was done by the project to prepare the systems to be used for pre-disaster cash transfer program. This includes completing a cash market, connectivity, and gender and protection assessment. While this information or baseline information were gathered, the project also invested in socially preparing the communities by helping them to open their own prepaid accounts that would be available before a disaster strikes, attending basic financial literacy trainings and users education, helping local merchants become accredited and trained on digital cash disbursement, increasing awareness of community on safeguarding and protection, including organizing community leaders and volunteers to become community protectors or monitors. While the project is preparing and enhancing the model, unfortunately, on Christmas Eve of 2019, a typhoon hit Salcedo and allowed the project to activate the pre-disaster cash transfer protocol on a real-time basis. Lessons were generated on this occasion, which provided an input to number 6 for developing the pre-cash transfer protocol and anticipatory action plan starting 2020. These were all done while the pandemic is ongoing, and several capacity trainings were held. This includes parametric forecast training, cash voucher assistance training, continuous social protection training, and scoping also of disaster risk financing needs. This helps us to improve the model and validate it to several simulation and drill as illustrated by activity number 7. And while those are capacity buildings were actually communicated and transferred to different stakeholders in the community, local community actors, particularly the local government, continuously monitor typhoon forecast and risk, and it became an integral work of the consortium, especially the local government. This also became the basis for policy review, which leads to completing all the tasks, ideally in activity number 9, but before we actually ended the project in February this year, Typhoon Auring came, and another activation was done by the project in February 2021. Until we conclude officially the project and some of its activities up to mid-April to May of this month, midweek of this month rather, by continuously discussing sustainability and expansion plan. Next slide, please. So while these activities or the journey of the project have actually been captured for the past 2 years, how do you think we fare in terms of meeting our innovation targets? Based on external evaluation and impact review, we were able to achieve our innovation targets. The green smiley face on your screen means that we were able to met our target. The system and the protocols are functional, and we've generated lessons and gathered positive feedback from different stakeholders. Among the innovation targets, which I believe there are 8 indicators, these are actually a reflection of how local community increase their knowledge, awareness, and understanding of preparedness, especially the use of financial services, access to information, local government, local humanitarian actors, and different stakeholders working together to understand their vulnerabilities, their risks, and the use of forecast information, we were able to accomplish them according to our own set target and timeline. Next slide, please. But what does it mean? It also helped us to actually understand better how we will be improving anticipatory action after the project period. In conclusion, while we made significant progress on meeting our operational level targets, we've also learned there are three critical factors that can make anticipatory action a key capacity to shift paradigm and practice of humanitarian system. This form part of our scale-up vision and ways forward and recommended actions over the next 3 to 20 years. These are the following. At the policy level, institutionalizing anticipatory action and making them more sustainable, at least at the policy level, requires revisiting and adoption to ensure that impact-based forecasting through parametric index, disaster risk financing, including the use of local disaster funds, would become sustainable. Early action helped further shift local government perspective from response to preparedness. Second, collectively, we aim that we can find sustainable financing mechanisms that will be adopted and managed by the government to allow commercial financial service provider offer and continuously innovate preemptive financial products and services such as pre-disaster cash grants, pre-disaster insurance, pre-disaster credit to help vulnerable sector and businesses to manage financial stresses and shocks brought about by the disaster, and to increase the ability of people to bounce back through social protection packages. And lastly, like this opportunity that we're having right now, data sharing and learning is very important. This will help us to be more proactive, to use each other, to serve each other as resources to build and strengthen our organizational capacity to improve disaster preparedness and ability. By the end of 3 to 20 years, we aim that potentially by scaling up through different means, there are more people, at least 1 million people that would be benefiting from Be Ready, and that can also be covering 6 countries with similar context and disaster risk preparedness needs. Next slide, please. Lastly, we hope that these experiences show the journey and leadership of the local humanitarian actors represented by the Be Ready Consortium and our effort to advance forward thinking and disaster preparedness anticipatory action. Maraming salamat.
Maraming salamat po, Ma'am Nina, for clearly explaining how to effectively implement an effective and sustainable disaster risk financing strategy, particularly a pre-disaster cash transfer program as part of a solid disaster risk management plan. Now, to those who haven't won yet, this is your last chance. Ayan na, pwede pang manalo ng 300 pesos, of course, from Be Ready. Here we go. The question about Ma'am Nina's presentation: what aspect of disaster risk reduction strategies involves pre-disaster cash transfers? Here we go. You may start answering now. Merong mga pumapasok ng sagot. May sumagot na isa, sabi niya, PayMaya. Someone said participatory action development, anticipatory action, disaster risk financing, preemptive cash transfers, community early action, anticipatory action. I love it. Passionate pa rin. Thank you so much for all the questions. For all the answers coming in. And we have a winner. Na-decide na po ng team. Na-determine natin na ang winner ay si Jennifer Bisalda. Let's go look at her answer once again. Jennifer Bisalda. Nakita ko kanina yung sagot niya. There it is, disaster risk financing. You are correct, and congratulations. You've just won 300 pesos. Now, that's all the time we have for our 6th and final presentation. Once again, thank you so much po, Ma'am Nina, for showing us how local governments can take and scale up disaster risk financing strategies like the pre-disaster cash transfers for anticipatory disaster risk management. And congratulations once again to our final winner, Jennifer Besalda. Now, in the last hour and a half, we've learned so much about the lessons and the experiences of the consortium members during the initial 2-year run of the Be Ready project. But I'm also sure that you may have questions to ask the speakers or parts of their presentation that you'd like to clarify. So as I mentioned earlier, now is your chance to get those answers. If you are wondering about anything, if you would like to know more, if there's anything you'd like to clarify, please type them up in the chat box. And since your name is already there, you may simply add the organization that you represent, and of course, who you would like to ask the question to, and what your question is. And of course, our team will be determining some of the questions that we are able to give to our speakers today that can give us those live answers. Maraming salamat po muli. Example ng question, Oxfam Pilipinas, Toby Berman, Mr. Toby Berman, how accurate is the parametric index? So pwedeng ganun po yun. Who you represent, who you would like to ask the question to, and what the question is. We'll wait for those questions. Chance nyo na to. Ayan na. Thank you so much, Ms. Carmi, for placing the format of the questions for today as well. And we'd once again like to thank, of course, all of our partners for making everything possible. Not just the Be Ready Learning Conference and the project itself, but everything that has been done since the beginning and for being here today. Of course, Global Parametrics, Smart Padala and PayMaya, the Municipal Local Government of Salcedo and Eastern Samar, People's Disaster Risk Reduction Network, and Plan International Philippines. And of course, here we go. We have our first question from Seth Romana, Angat Pilipinas Coalition for Financial Literacy, for Nina Abogado. Miss Nina, ang question po niya ay, in your opinion, which of the innovation targets you enumerated were the most challenging to hit and why? Once again, this question is from Seth Romana of Angat Pilipinas Coalition for Financial Literacy, and the question is for Ma'am Nina Abogado. In your opinion, which of the innovation targets you enumerated were the most challenging to hit and why po? Maraming salamat po.
Maybe I think that, sorry, just to be clear, I can respond right now, right, Tony?
Yes po, ma'am. You may respond po now.
Thank you for that question. I think maybe the consortium members will also have a different perspective in terms of identifying which among the key innovation is different to target. I think it's difficult to pinpoint one response only because the whole target of the project is actually integrated or interweave in terms of targets. We cannot be able to practice, or the Salcedo community will not be able to practice anticipatory action without having a reliable source of forecast information, which is needed to be built first before other processes comes in place. But I would say maybe the big challenge that we have encountered is actually, of course, the available data that we have in the Philippines that needs to be collected prior to the implementation of the project. As mentioned by other consortium members, while we are in the process of implementing the project, of course, the pandemic happened and it changed totally how all our practices for humanitarian response, especially anticipatory action, would be implemented. There are separate guidelines for anticipatory action, which was very difficult in the time of pandemic. These two, I think, were very critical for us to move collectively, but with the cooperation and active participation of the consortium members, we were able to collectively find solutions together. I hope that answers the question of Joseph or maybe some member of the.
Yes. Actually, I agree po. I feel that you did definitely answer that question. Thank you so much for clarifying that po, and for sharing your knowledge once again. And I also agree, data nga po, existing data is definitely a challenge to really bring together and to update. And at the same time, COVID-19, the challenges brought about by the pandemic. Thank you very much, Ma'am Nina. And maraming salamat mo muli to Seth Romana for that question. Now, our next question is from Hercules Paradyang of CBM International Philippines. The question is, this is for Oxfam, and the question is, who do you think in the financing industry players are interested to take over your role as a source of financing? How do you set the amount to be given to affected families? And once again, this question is for Oxfam.
Based on our scoping study on disaster risk financing, there are different financial sector, particularly coming from microfinance institution and insurance company that would be willing to take a lead role, such as the one that we have participated in Be Ready. Unfortunately, we cannot disclose yet their names because we are in the process of exploratory discussion with them. But there are several financial sectors that are very much interested to participate in phase 2, which is actually for them to test the business model and try their own financing to later on commercially or publicly maybe offer this. In terms of cash grants, where the amount were actually set, this is done by the local government based on their understanding of the needs of the community for a particular period of time. For Be Ready, we have covered at least 5 to 7 days based also on the guidelines developed by the consortium and existing guidelines on emergency cash transfer. We have also looked at the price index, the income level at the region, and of course, understanding the different economic status of the community members. These were all actually considered in terms of identifying the amount given to the project participants or families. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Ma'am Nina. We have another follow-up question for you, po. This is, thank you so much, by the way, to all of our participants for the questions. Please do keep them coming. Here's another one from Ma'am Nina. So, Good Neighbors International, VC Apostol. Siya po ang nagpadala ng ating question. At sabi po niya, if you will roll out the models which you have developed, how can you assist the organizations who are interested to do the rollout? That's a wonderful question. Curious din ako dyan, VC Apostol. Maraming salamat po for that. And once again, from Good Neighbors, for Ma'am Nina.
Maybe I encourage also the consortium members to speak, but maybe just to give a response to this. This is part of our plan for scale up for this year. As we are wrapping up phase 1 of Be Ready, we are also starting actually Be Ready 2, which is scale up, expanding into different areas and scaling up also the learnings at a global level, which allows us to lead and to answer your question. I think it takes discussions with different stakeholders to understand their interest on implementing an anticipatory action. In the period of 2 years, we were able to test and validate that the model for Be Ready, such as anticipatory action with disaster risk financing, is actually a viable and feasible concept. Like our experience, ability for scaling up, whether you are coming from private sector, maybe government adopting and expanding this, or academic institution that would like to carry the skill and capacity, the first activity and key strategies that we have identified is to conduct capacity building trainings to allow all the technology and the skills to be understood and passed on to others. The others might be more operational, but this is part of our design for phase two of slowly expanding, scaling up, and also ensuring that there would be policy support and adoption by particularly by government. And can I encourage other consortium members who have been actively part of the implementation of our phase two, maybe you'd like also to share some of the thoughts and the roles of each one of us in the consortium for the scale-up plan. Salamat po.
Thank you very much for that, Ma'am Nina. If anybody in the consortium would actually like to add to that right now about the scaling up plan, please do. We welcome you.
Yes, Tony. I think it's good that to hear that many organizations are interested to go into anticipatory actions, and actually that's one we want to do in the future, especially that we are planning to really influence the government to adapt that as a policy from the national down to the local level. Of course, if we're talking about resources, there are a lot of ways of how the LGUs of the government can allocate funding for that. Thank you.
Maraming salamat po, Mr. Masagka. And we also actually, if there's anybody in the consortium that would actually still like to add to that as well, pwede po right now, we welcome you to share your thoughts as well and your answers before we move on to the next question. Pero kung wala po, I would like to move on to the next question right now. And this is actually from Hercules Parajang, this time for PayMaya. Hercules Parajang is from CBM International. Now, the question for PayMaya is, sari-sari stores will also be affected by typhoons and flooding. Sadly, how will financial services be provided to the beneficiaries in the same community? And how accessible are the payment centers to older people and persons with disabilities?
Right. Thank you, Hercules, for that question. So in the models that we are trying to build, the goal is how do we increase the number of sari-sari stores that are going to participate. So first and foremost, this allows more options and choices for our beneficiaries to go to. Second, because the program naman is a preemptive disbursement of funds. So before the typhoon hits, we expect the participants to come and encash from the sari-sari stores. So this gives them enough time to prepare and to move. In the same way, there were also some experiences that we've seen that sometimes naman the sari-sari stores, kasi ni-evacuate din sila as part of that. So some of them can still operate even outside of their areas of operations, especially if the need arises, or if there's ample preparation that we have given them. So at least they can stock up in terms of yung cash liquidity nila to facilitate those transactions.
Thank you very much, Sir Kenneth, for answering that question. Now I'd like to confirm with the team, do we have time for one more question? All right, we have one more question coming up, curated by the team, waiting for the cue on that to see which one has been chosen as our last question for today that can be answered. And if I may do the honors, I would actually like to turn over to a question here. Okay. What steps were taken in terms of protecting the data of beneficiaries during the course of the projects? So this question is from Hilary Marie Ratilla. Very good question. So once again, any of the speakers can answer this po. What steps were taken in terms of protecting the data of the beneficiaries during the course of the projects?
Tony, basically the project is guided with the data privacy law that in terms of gathering data, it's clear to the beneficiaries or the project participants the purpose and how to be this information will be stored. And of course, because these data are part of the requirements in terms of opening an account. The data is managed by a program, then with a focal person who is the data management officer.
Maraming salamat for responding to that, Sir Masagka. Actually, we have one final question. I hope that I pronounce your name right, sir. Mr. Bruno Molige from Oxfam, Novib. Thank you very much for your question. Now, this question is directed to Miss Nina. Is there also space in the Be Ready program to pressure multilateral and bilateral funders to invest more in preemptive support for disasters? Thank you so much, Mr. Bruno from Oxfam Novib, for that question.
Hi, Bruno. Nice to see you here. That's part of the Scale Up plan, understanding the need, and based on the result of the disaster risk financing, sustainability of financing for preemptive action is actually needed. So this would have to look into different types of donors within and above countries, also enabling and supporting local governments to actually look within where they can actually find it. And lastly, also to tap private or even government financial sector to allow for preemptive financial services to be part of their programs and services. So different types, different range and scale of donors and funders will be tapped for preemptive, sustainable preemptive financial support.
Thank you so much, Ma'am Nina. And thank you once again to everyone that participated with us today. Thank you for all your questions. That is all the time we have for our Q&A, but we are so grateful for your participation. And once again, thank you to each and every one of our partners and speakers that shared their messages, insights, and knowledge today. And don't worry, like I said earlier, we'll do our best to reach out to you and answer your question after the event. Now, as we've learned from all of our speakers today, the Be Ready project is a potentially game-changing disaster risk reduction model that can help local government units and humanitarian actors protect vulnerable and marginalized families much better. It's a proactive approach to disaster risk management that focuses on pre-disaster cash transfers instead of post-disaster ones. And to formally close the learning conference today, let's all welcome Ma'am Maria Rosario Felisco, the Country Director of Oxfam Pilipinas, or Ma'am Lot, as she synthesizes the lessons and experiences presented today and delivers our closing remarks. Welcome, Ma'am. Ma'am Lot, I think you're on mute po.
Oh, sorry. Hi. Hi, Tony. Good to see you and everyone here. I might take a little bit more time, Tony, if that's okay, because it is closing and synthesizing, but I hope in doing so, I'll also be able to answer some of the questions that came up. So actually, with this learning conference, we're officially concluding the first phase of the Be Ready project, which we undertook in the last 2 years, and during which we learned that proactive disaster risk financing as a disaster preparedness approach, it's not only necessary, but also feasible. Let me highlight some specific lessons we have learned. First, very obviously, innovation takes time, but Be Ready was able to do what normally takes maybe 3 to 4 years in 2 years. I think that's a great accomplishment. Second, the availability of online technology and the hardware for digital and on-site interventions is very critical to communities. The pandemic and related restrictions on travel underscored this even more. Third, successfully implementing a DRR model like Be Ready requires continuous recording of typhoon data in order to generate more data sets and thus generate more accurate parametric triggers. The implementation in Salcedo needed 100 years worth of typhoon data actually. However, only a little of over 50 years was available. And further, these were available as printed raw archives. Moving forward, such data should be digitized for faster and more accurate generation of parametric triggers. The fourth point pertains to quick preemptive cash transfers to individual accounts and converting this into real cash. Account holders must thus know how to take care of the SIM cards under which their I-Afford PayMaya accounts are registered. There must be reliable mobile signal and enough money in, money out centers or MIMOs to ensure the timely and smooth release of preemptive cash. I have thus far mentioned operational lessons, but key to this is a lesson we should not fail to take into account, which is the critical role of social preparation and local leadership, involving the communities in the process, building financial literacy, and ensuring local actors lead, especially local government. Next is how digital financial inclusion, which is a critical component of Be Ready, leads also to financial inclusion of women. More than just protecting women, children, and other vulnerable sectors, DRR strategies like Be Ready must also provide women with platforms for meaningful participation. We also learned that making Be Ready work needs significant time and financial investments from humanitarian actors. Developing and employing a parametric index, among others, involves costs. As such, we must convince government and the financial sector about the effectiveness and feasibility of this model in order to encourage their participation. Having learned all these, what's next for the Be Ready project? In phase 2, we will focus on financial tools, policies, and the important roles that partners in the private sector and in government play. And to do this, we will first facilitate policy reviews and necessary reforms. For instance, Republic Act 10121 or the Philippine Disaster Risk Reduction Management Act prohibits local government units from using their disaster risk reduction funds for pre-disaster cash transfers. Without the necessary amendments, LGUs will not be able to use their DRR funds before a disaster. Another area of review is in typhoon data management. As I mentioned, ideally, the parametric index needs 100 years worth of typhoon data, but our country's archives only have a little more than 50 years worth, and these are manually produced and not accessible online. A scaled-up Be Ready implementation can thus include supporting the digitalization of national data to create an efficient digital filing system that includes information on floods and other natural disasters in the country. Second, we will encourage more financial service providers to participate in a wider implementation of the model and facilitate greater government-business cooperation through partnership agreements. In particular, we will facilitate discussions with the Insurance Commission and the Department of Finance to explore the feasibility of pre-disaster insurance products as a means of funding pre-disaster cash transfers. Third, we will advocate the adoption of other available financial services from Be Ready to be part of communities' daily lives, not just during disasters. While it's true that one of the uses of the I-Afford PayMaya card is to receive financial aid before and after disasters, families can become even more resilient and raise their standards of living by using the various financial products on the platform. These include safe storage of money, encashment of money from other providers, payments, access to insurance products, and even business capital loans. And this leads to, as Kenneth mentioned, a stronger and more vibrant financial ecosystem at the community level. Fourth, we need to popularize the use of the parametric index among national and local government units. It is the foundational element of Be Ready because it determines whether the LGU will proceed with pre-disaster cash transfers. As such, we need to ensure that numerical signals from the index will be relayed to LGUs in clear and simple ways, like the familiar color-coded storm warnings that we often see on media. Fifth, community participation is critical. Communities should be involved from collecting and processing data to developing the triggers. In this way, we also develop the community's capabilities in the science of early warning. Sixth, We must ensure gender responsiveness in all our work, and this includes strengthening protection monitoring. Finally, investments in community connectivity are essential. Site selection highly considers the presence of network towers. Thus, we must also work with government and private sector to push for the acceleration of tower setups in pilot sites within their jurisdictions. In conclusion, preparedness is the first line of defense for vulnerable communities in disaster-prone areas, with an emphasis on pre-disaster cash transfers rather than post-event responses. The Be Ready model can help marginalized and vulnerable families not just fortify their preparedness, it also affords families the greater dignity of making their own preparedness decisions. The initial implementation of the Be Ready project yielded valuable lessons and experiences which can help us further improve the model and, more importantly, help protect more vulnerable families through upscaling and replication. But this we cannot do alone, and it is thus our hope that we can explore opportunities for collaboration towards a more gender-inclusive, resilient, adaptive, and disaster-ready Philippines. Thank you, and good afternoon to all. And back to you, Tony.
Thank you so much again, Ma'am Lot, for your clear and concise synthesis of the lessons presented today, as well as your inspiring and encouraging remarks, as always. And I'd also like to say, personally, congratulations. I am so proud of this whole entire project and initiative, and please know that we support you all the way. Thank you so much once again. And at this point, we would like to thank all of our participants again and again and again and again that joined us today. Thank you for your questions, your engagement, your wonderful energy, and please do proceed to Oxfam Pilipinas and Plan International's Facebook page for more updates coming up in the months to come, how you can be a part of the project or anything more that you would like to find out about. We'd also like to thank, of course, our partners from Oxfam Pilipinas, Global Parametrics, Smart Padala and PayMaya, the Municipal Local Government of Salcedo and Eastern Samar, the People's Disaster Risk Reduction Network, PDRRN, and Plan International Philippines. Thank you for your energy. Thank you for making this a fun and empowering day together. And most of all, we thank you, all of you, for all that you do to help build a better future for everyone, everywhere. It has been an honor to host today's event. Once again, I'm Antoinette Toss, Oxfam Ambassador for Resilience, wishing you health, happiness, and peace.
Thank you, Tony. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Bye, Tony.
Thank you, Ma'am Luck. Thank you, Oxfam Pilipinas family.
Thank you to all participants po and sa organizers. Tony, thank you.
Maraming salamat po. Thank you to everyone.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you. Bye from Plan.
Maraming salamat po.
Good to see you, Bruno.
Thank you po.
Thank you very much for your intervention, Lot. It was nice to see you and nice to hear you and nice to hear the progress and the plans what you have. I'm very proud. I'm so much proud of the team. I'm really still triggered and missing you a lot.
We miss you, Bruno. You are part of this. You are part of this.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Miss Lot.
Thanks, Roy.
Thank you, Carmi and team.
Thank you po.